Friday morning was crisp and clean as a sheet. The New England sky, so clear the red maples by the cemetery looked freshly rinsed. Maplebrook was a small town about 2 hours from Boston, the kind of place where people still kept the fireplace roaring in October and brought casseroles to the bereaved. Evelyn Hart stood in front of Barnes and Sons Funeral Home, arms tight around a wreath of white chrysanthemums, holding herself steady between the smell of lilies and the thud of wooden doors swinging open and shut. Her husband, Jacob Hart, 41, had collapsed from a sudden stroke while jogging along the Charles 3 days earlier. Everything had happened fast enough to be absurd. A call at 6:12 a.m. The ambulance ride, another call from Mass General at 7:03. 3 words did not make it. In Evelyn's mind, their 14-year marriage had been sliced clean through, the insides left open to the sun. The funeral home was warm from space heaters, with gray-blue upholstered chairs and bright wooden frames on display. Photos of Jacob played on a TV screen, a lanky kid in a Little League uniform in Ohio, a tough student smirking beside an old Toyota, a consultant at Ainsworth and Clark, standing before a blue conference backdrop in Chicago. The final image was Jacob and Evelyn in their backyard, her crooked smile, his arm around their retriever, Scout. Evelyn stood at an angle, watching. In the photo, he was grinning wide, eyes pinched into slivers, like he would carried sunlight his whole life. She would chosen the picture last night while sitting with her mother-in-law, Lorraine, and Jacob's younger sister, Mira, in the kitchen, brewing tea and half arguing about the font for the headstone. Georgia feels warmer, Evelyn had said. Times New Roman is proper, Lorraine had answered, as if propriety were the only thing that could save a person from chaos. When the minister began his first words, neighbors drifted past to squeeze Evelyn's shoulder. The door opened again. Evelyn did not turn. She kept her face set to the expression everyone knew, composed, contained. Only when a child darted along the row's small hand, clutching the seat edge, did she look up. A girl, 6 or 7, in a blue dress, blonde hair tied hastily with a white band. She was a sliver of sunlight in a room that did not need any. The woman behind her had an oval face, softly curled brown hair, and a camel wool coat. She tugged the girl's hand and whispered, "Maddie, slow down." Then she looked around like she was searching for her rightful seat. After the service, people formed a slow line toward the casket. Evelyn held her position near Jacob's head, a guard at the road's end. Co-workers from the firm, lawn-mowing neighbors, Myra's homeroom teacher, everyone murmured, "I am sorry for your loss." When the woman came, she brought the girl with her. The child peered into the face of the man sleeping in a dark suit. Her eyes went wide, like she would found the name of a city she would just learned at school. The woman lifted her head. Her gaze met Evelyn's. "Hello. I am Lila," she said. "Lila Carter." She swallowed, still gripping the girl's hand. I am Jacob's wife." The air conditioner seemed to unplug itself. Evelyn heard a crack inside, a pane of glass splitting. But the same instinct that had carried her through board meetings and mother-in-law size kicked in. "I am Evelyn Hart," she said, frighteningly steady. "I am also Jacob's wife." The girl looked up and said, loud enough, "My dad is Jacob Hart." Heads turned. A murmur scattered like rain across a tin roof. Lorraine dug her fingers into Evelyn's arm. "Who is that?" she hissed, the vein at her temple pulsing. The minister hurried over and ushered them to a small side room, usually reserved for family to breathe. As soon as the door shut, Lila began, as if silence might bury her as she let it. "I did not know," she said. "I knew Jacob had been married before. He told me he was divorced. I have a marriage certificate." She rummaged in her purse and pulled out a creased envelope, a copy from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, dated 2.5 years ago. We met in Philadelphia at a book launch. I work at the city library. He traveled there a lot for work. We had a small wedding. This is my daughter, Madison. Maddie, the girl corrected, rubbing a fingertip along the table's edge. Daddy said call me Maddie like his little league team. Evelyn heard her own voice from very far away. Jacob never divorced me. The sentence thudded like iron. Lorraine exhaled and fell into a padded chair. Lord, she said, eyes going wide, then turned to Evelyn. We need to call a lawyer. Lila hugged her daughter, shame and shock warring in her face. I did not come to fight, she said. I came to say goodbye, to let my child know. Her lips trembled. I lost my husband too. Gossip outran the wind. In Maplebrook, everything became a story at Shaw's bakery counter. By nightfall, the wife from Philadelphia had traveled from the gym to Main Street Coffee. Evelyn drove home through white-painted clapper houses, pumpkins glowing on porches, windows lit gold. Scout barreled to the door, tail windmilling, then slowed as if recognizing what was missing. The Birch Street house they had bought 6 years earlier had a slate stone fireplace, bookshelves full of paperbacks, and a piano no one ever finished a song on. The kitchen table overflowed with the town's offerings: lasagna, roast chicken, an apple pie, a handwritten note. Evelyn, if you need anything, text. Evelyn took a glass from the cabinet and poured water. The glass slipped from her wet palm and shattered on the tile. She crouched, picked up shards. A bead of blood bloomed at her finger, scarlet against the white floor. She pressed a tissue to it, leaned her back against the cabinets, and cried for the first time all day, heavy, tearing sounds, like hail on a roof. Her phone buzzed. Mira. Hey, Mira said softly. Are you okay? Barely. I just heard from Aunt Carol that Lila and her girl are at a motel off the highway. Mira paused. I do not know what to say, but the kid is really sweet and sharp. I saw how she looked at Jacob like he was a hero. Evelyn drew a breath. Can you come with me to Knox's office tomorrow? She asked. I do not want to go alone. Of course, Mira said. I am here. After she hung up, Evelyn went to the bedroom. The closet was the same, Jacob's shirts hanging, tied in musk in the air. On the shelf were 2 leather wallets and a watch box. She opened the bottom drawer. A slim black phone lay there, screen dark. Evelyn did not remember Jacob having a second phone. It lit without a passcode. The contacts list was short. The last text, 4 days ago. Lila, I will drop Maddie at ballet early. Make sure you eat something. Evelyn's stomach fell into a pit named Truth. She set the phone down, hands shaking. Lila's words echoed, I did not know. Maybe. Or maybe that is what people say to stay afloat. Scout pushed his nose into her knee and panted. Evelyn buried her face in his warm fur. What happens now, Scout? She whispered. He panted and offered no answers. Outside, wind combed the maples. Leaves hissed like a far-off sea. Attorney Knox saw them in his oak-paneled office, windows looking out on Maine. He was in his 60s, voice measured, hands always flat on the desk. First off, he said, I am very sorry. He removed his glasses and let the silence sit a beat. Then, the legal side will be messy but manageable. If Jacob never divorced you, the second marriage too. Lila is void as a matter of law, but as having a child may trigger other rights, and the probate court may allocate a portion of the estate to a non-marital child, if any exists. Also, if his insurance designates spouse, there will be a dispute. What about a criminal offense? Evelyn asked. The word bigamy slid through her mind like an ice cube. In most states, it is a felony, Knox said. but the deceased can't be prosecuted. The remaining question is whether there is an investigation for civil consequences. You and the family could push it, but my advice is to weigh that carefully. It puts everyone's name in the local paper. Evelyn stared out at a cyclist riding past with a baguette in his basket, as if this were any other day. I do not want this to be a TV show, she said. I just want the truth put where it belongs. Knox nodded. I will contact counsel for Lila Carter if she is one to compile an inventory of Jacob's assets, accounts, and insurance. Meanwhile, he added, looking her square in the eye, you need to brace for something harder. The pieces you did not know about the person you loved. Evelyn gave a brittle laugh. I found a phone I would never seen. Messages from Philadelphia. I think I have started. Maplebrook was quiet as a church in winter. Evelyn drove into Boston and stopped at Jacob's office in Back Bay. Floor 21, glass over the city. Margaret Jacobs' assistant met her at the door. Evelyn, Margaret said, hugging her lightly, lavender trailing her. I am so sorry. Jacob was a good man. A good man, Evelyn repeated, like an old password. Did he keep anything here? I would like to pack up. They opened Jacob's locker. Objects spoke. Muddy running shoes, a light jacket, a black notebook. Evelyn flipped it open. Notes on a Philadelphia project. The client name repeating Montjoy Publishing. Tucked inside was a storage locker receipt in Somerville Locker A317, a small key in a plastic sheath. Want me to go with you? Margaret asked. No thanks. Evelyn pocketed the key. It was a strangely warm noon for October. The storage facility was a row of long metal buildings with green roll-up doors, a dry tang of dust and steel in the wind. Door A317 was heavy. Inside were cartons labeled in Jacob's neat hand, books, photos, sports. In the back sat an old silver suitcase with black tape across the lid, truth. She sank to the concrete, heart hammering. Her hand shook as she pulled the zipper. Inside were 2 envelopes. One read Evelyn, the other Lila. A thin notebook labeled Maddie if you want, and a photo printed on film paper. Jacob in the middle of 2 women, one was Evelyn. One Lila, but obviously a clumsy collage. 3 different backgrounds cut and pasted, the borders trimmed unevenly. Evelyn barked a laugh. It was the inept, hungry kind of effort made by someone trying to cram everything into one frame. She opened her letter. Ev, if you are reading this, the thing you hate most about me, silence, has become the only way I can talk. I thought if I were careful enough and good enough and worked hard enough, I could be 2 people at once. I was wrong. I grew up in Dayton, where my dad left one house for another, and I swore I would never be him. Then I started traveling too much, met Lila in Philadelphia, spent more time there than was safe. I did not stop. I built a bridge between 2 banks and told myself I was holding up 2 homes. But every bridge has a weight limit. I love you. There is not a but big enough to wash that away. I love you with the mowing schedule, with winter snow shoveling, with the way you read Joan Didion by the window. I also love Lila with library coffee, with Philadelphia drizzle, with the way she hears old stories like they are new. Maddie. She reminds me of me as a kid, before the collapse. I wanted to be someone else. I am not. This case has documents for accounts, insurance, assets, and one request. Please meet you and Lila at Memorial Park, the bench by the lake where I used to run. Take the photo I left. And if you can, leave me there, not because I deserve it, but because I want the people I love to look at each other and not see enemies. Ev, I am sorry. There are not words enough. G. The paper trembled in her hand. Nausea rose. She braced a palm on the concrete. Lila. She looked at the envelope with Lila's name. She did not open it. She called. Lila, it is Evelyn, she said, voice dry. I am at a storage unit, Jacob rented. There is something. Something for you. And something for all of us. Silence on the line, a heartbeat. Where are you? Lila asked. Somerville. A 317. I am coming. Lila arrived with Maddie. The sun had slid west. The air cooled. Maddie eyed the green doors like a treasure hunt. Evelyn handed Lila the envelope with her name. Lila hugged it to her chest without opening. Can we open these at the same time? She asked. Evelyn nodded. Jacob's voice in Lila's letter was the same, full of guilt. Lila read silently, lips moving. When she finished, she exhaled like a swimmer breaking the surface. He wrote about Dayton too, she said. About wanting a new family without smashing the old. I asked him. He said he was divorced. That paperwork takes time to update. I am not a fool. I am a librarian. I know how to check things. But he always had an answer just adequate enough. Evelyn hesitated, then handed over the second phone. I found this at my house, she said. Your texts. Lila held it, eyes glossy. I hate being called the other woman, she said, voice shaking but firm. I am a victim like you, but I know it hurts worse for you. The house on Birch Street. Everything you two built. There is no ruler for cuts, Evelyn said. We are both bleeding. Maddie had picked up the little notebook. Maddie, if you want. She looked at the adults, measuring the storm on their faces. MS. Evelyn, she said, do you want to see this book with me? The innocence was so stark that Evelyn froze. She knelt. Yes, sweetie. They opened it. Inside were snapshots Jacob had taken at the park, pencil hearts doodled in the margins, and a few lines to the child. Maddie, if you are reading this, I need you to know my mistake is not your fault. You are allowed to love both women here if you want, the way you love the Phillies and the oak in the yard. Evelyn swallowed. Lila's yard must have an oak. She would never been to Philadelphia, never known. Another city, another season of leaves, a husband who divided time like flour. Memorial Park, Lila repeated. When? Sunday, Evelyn said. 3 p.m. Memorial Park was carpeted in gold leaves. Sun poured honey over the veterans' bench. Evelyn got there first with a framed photo, the folded letter, and a small urn from the funeral home. A few minutes later, Lila and Maddie came down the path. Maddie carried a bunch of wild daisies. They did not pray out loud. They sat shoulder to shoulder, a forearm between them, and watched the lake. Kids tossed leaves. An old man shuffled by. A couple pushed a stroller. Lila laid the flowers at the bench's feet. Jack, she stopped. Jake always said he liked running here, she said, half laughing. He called this path Caramel Road because the fall made it that color. Evelyn opened the urn. Her hands shook. A breeze lifted the gray dust, and for a second it glittered like confetti before vanishing. Maddie gripped both women with both her hands. They propped the photo of Jacob against the bench back. A dog barreled past, sniffed, wagged, and trotted on. All three of them laughed at the nonsense of it. He wanted us to see each other without anger, Lila whispered. Maybe not today, Evelyn said, but we can start by not lying to each other. Lila met her eyes. Okay. On Monday, the insurance company sent a letter. The beneficiary was named as spouse. Knox said, we will let the court decide. The Middlesex probate office set a preliminary hearing. The spreadsheet of Jacob's estate gave Evelyn vertigo, a 401k, the Subaru, the Maplebrook house, a small account in Philadelphia she would never heard of. Every line was a secret, every number a question. In the churn, small things became life preservers. Scout needed a walk at 7. Coffee grounds had to be dumped. The patio chairs should be dragged into the garage before the snow. Evelyn texted Lila, starting with practicalities. Evelyn, I am taking Jacob's suits to Goodwill unless there is one you want to keep. Lila, thank you. I would like the navy one. He wore it when we got married. Evelyn paused at married. Betrayal was a clawed animal that scratched around in her chest. Then she pictured Maddie's hand at the park, clutching hers. Okay, she typed. They met a few more times, in public places, a cafe, the library, the law office. The more they met, the more Evelyn realized Lila was not her mirror in another city. Lila was Lila, careful, in love with books, laughing louder, less skeptical. Convinced people can begin again if they have enough new titles to read. Evelyn, the woman who pinned everything in place with binder clips, learned how to let go of some. One day it snowed thick. Maplebrook turned into a postcard. Lila called. Madison wants to see the snow in Maplebrook, she said, hesitant. I know it is odd, but she wants to see the red maples her dad talked about. They are white now. Evelyn looked out at Scout's looping paw prints in the yard. Come over, she said, surprised at how natural it sounded. I will make hot chocolate. They arrived in the afternoon. Maddie shot into the yard, squealing as snow clung to Scout's fur. Lila brought a bag of brownies she would bake at midnight because she could not sleep. In the kitchen, as cocoa dissolved into hot milk, Lila said, I ran into his mother Lorraine at church. She looked at me like I would broken her statue. She lost her son, Evelyn said, and she believes in proper. I lost a husband. You lost two things, a husband and your image of him. Lila nodded, eyes shining. I do not know how to tell Maddie when she is older. I do not want to lie, but I do not want her to hate him. Maybe we tell the truth as it is. Her dad was a complicated man who did wrong. Evelyn said, stirring, and we show her that from the mess adults make, she can still become good. In the living room, Maddie shrieked as Scout rolled on the rug. She ran into the kitchen, cheeks flushed. MS. Evelyn, do you know how to ski? I know how to ski slowly, Evelyn said. Mom falls all the time, Maddie bragged, making Lila laugh. Evelyn squinted at the girl. Then Scout and I will teach both of you. Winter passed, as every Massachusetts winter does, long and tired. Ice peeled off Memorial Park's lake, the water black and glossy. The insurance dispute ended in compromise and fatigue. The company deposited the payout with the court. The court split a share to Evelyn as the lawful spouse and a share to Maddie as the decedent's minor child. It was not justice the way anyone wanted, but it was what the law called fair. I have seen worse, Knox said. Evelyn nodded. She would learn to accept imperfect answers. On a morning in April, the magnolia by the porch burst open. Lorraine knocked. She stood stiff, coat buttoned, handbag clenched. We are going to meet the girl, she said, as if commanding an unseen army. I do not want her to know my son through gossip. Evelyn let her in. Lorraine glanced around. The photo of Jacob had moved from the mantel to the bookshelf. The shirts no longer hung in the closet. The second phone was locked away. She released a small sigh, like a train venting steam. They drove to Philadelphia on a sunny day, new leaves bright. Lila's house sat on an oak-lined street with a white fence and a creaking porch swing. Lila opened the door, face paling when she saw Lorraine. I am Jacob's mother, Lorraine said, pride and pinched grief in the sentence. I want to meet my granddaughter. Maddie peeked from behind the door, wary at a new adult. Lorraine looked at her so long that Lila almost stepped in, but then the older woman crouched and opened her arms. Come here, honey, she said, her voice soft for the first time in months. Maddie stepped forward the way a small bird chooses a branch. Lorraine hugged her. All three women exhaled. They sat in the living room, polite and awkward. The shelves held children's books arranged by color, a framed photo of Maddie grinning before the rocky statue, the air faintly sweet with something baked. Lila brought iced tea, her wrist trembling. Lorraine scanned the room and saw Jacob everywhere. A signed baseball, an old Red Sox hoodie, the detergent scent she would recognize the instant the door opened. "I do not know who to hate," she said suddenly, staring into the middle distance. "I want to hate you." She looked up at Lila. "Because it is easier than hating the boy I raised. But I also know I raised a child who watched his father leave one house for another. Maybe what I should hate is how some people wear fear around their neck like a stone." Lila bit her lip. Tears pooled. "I did not want to take your son," she said. "I just loved a man who told me he was free." Lorraine nodded slowly. "I believe you." Then she turned to Maddie. "Do you like apple pie?" Maddie bobbed her head, blonde hair bouncing. "Yes." "I make a decent one," Lorraine said, and smiled for real. "When you come to Maplebrook, I will bake." In June, Elm Street's Little League field was loud with kids. The brown boy threw too hard. Leather popped. Maddie stood at the fence, intent. "Daddy liked baseball," she said. "He said he used to be a catcher." "He wore number 7 as a boy," Lorraine added, voice curiously warm. "I still have the photo." Maddie turned. "MS. Evelyn, do you think I could play baseball?" "Of course," Evelyn said. "If you want." She glanced at Lila, and in that look was the hint of a future. Practices, new gloves, summer evenings stretching to 9, while kids begged for one more inning. On the bleachers, the two women sat beside each other without needing to fill the air. The quiet between them was not distance anymore. It was shade. The sun dipped, light dragging across the chalk lines. A bat cracked Pock and the crowd hooped. Maddie jumped. Lila and Evelyn laughed, natural as if they would always sat like this, long before they knew each other. Every town, every house, has its own echo. In Maplebrook, it was the screen door's squeak, the snowplow at dawn, the papery whisper of maple leaves on the steps. In Philadelphia, it was the trolley bell, the roar in the basketball arena, the smell of warm soft pretzels on a corner. Between those echoes, a new bridge rose not from lies, but from calls, emails, visits, and small questions like "You okay?" There were hard days. The first anniversary of Jacob's death. The day the estate closed. The day Maddie brought home an essay titled Family. She wrote, "My family is like a map. Sometimes the roads overlap. Sometimes they split in two, but they all take me home." Lila cried for nearly an hour. Evelyn read the photo of the essay on her laptop and sat very still, aching and warmed at once. Secrets did not disappear. They stayed like scars on a palm. You can feel the ridges. Sometimes they sting in the cold, but they stopped bleeding. And over time, another truth sprouted. People can grieve together and heal together, even when the wound came from the same hand. One September evening, the next year, when the maples began to flare red, Evelyn and Lila took Maddie to Memorial Park. They brought a young sugar maple from the nursery, shoulder high. By the lake, near the old bench, they dug a shallow hole, set the tree and tamped the earth. Maddie watered it with a purple plastic can. "Should we name the tree?" Maddie asked, eyes bright. "You pick," Lila said. "Caramel," Maddie said instantly. "Because of the caramel road." Evelyn laughed. "Perfect." They stood looking at the sapling, leaves quivering. On the bench, Jacob's photo had faded a little, but the grin was still there, a stubborn streak of sun. No one said forgive, because the word was too big and too ceremonial. They just stood together, three Americans in an American park, between seasons of falling and rising that belonged to a small American town. They breathed in the same rhythm, and somewhere inside that shared breath was an agreement. They would do the best they could for themselves, for the Birch Street house, for the porch swing in Philadelphia, for the dog named Scout, for the maple named Caramel, and for a child growing up between two cities, learning to read a map. Dusk fell, and the streetlights warmed on. Far off, a freight train called, dragging scattered stories across the country. The first star pricked out small light, too far for any tape measure. Lila held Maddie's hand. Evelyn set a hand on the girl's shoulder. They turned toward the parking lot, shoes scratching in the leaves, leaving behind a new tree and an old bench, a simple promise trailing their footsteps. See you tomorrow. The end.